All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's Leah Reynolds, Mind Your Health Wellness. And in front of me this moment, I have Dr. Jack Wolfson. I wanted to go into his whole pedigree, but he's like, nah, we don't need to do that. Let's just get rolling. So that's what we're going to do. So, Dr. Wolfson, I found you on Instagram. You call yourself the natural heart doctor, and that immediately resonated with me. Now, let me back up. First off, I found you through your wife. She is a wild mama,
Uh,
and I resonate with that. So I found her first, and everything she says, I am like, I fell in love with her immediately. I hope I get to interview her too. You'll have to plant a little bug in her ear. But having said that, for those of you that follow me, Mind Your Health Wellness, you know about my journey, you know my cancer history, my diagnosis of congestive heart failure. I want to get into that, Dr. Wolfson. I have some really interesting questions that I think my viewers are going to love that I know you're going to have some great insight on. So let's just dive right into it. So the reason that you resonate and what you say resonates with me is I want to get right into the meat of it. Let's talk statins. So I work in a medical clinic, in a naturopathic clinic. We have clients that come to us, they're on these statins, and they've been told that that's what's going to help them with their heart health. And yet it's not helping their heart health. So let's dive right into that.
the statin drugs obviously have been the biggest selling drug class of all time. In particular, Lipitor is the biggest selling drug of all time. And I think it's just a total failure, really, on three counts. Number one, it doesn't do what you think it does regarding lowering your risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying. It has a very trivial benefit, allegedly. Now, we could go conspiratorial and say the pharmaceutical companies make all the studies, therefore they control the results, and that is true. But even if you take it at face value and say, well, if I take a statin drug, my heart attack risk is lowered from 2% annually to 1.84% annually for people for primary prevention. So again, the statins don't work. They lower numbers down, but we don't care about lower numbers. We want to know, does the drug decrease my risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying? And the answer is, again, like I said, very little. Number two, they have a tremendous amount of side effects. And there was a whole book written on that by the late medical doctor and NASA astronaut. His name is Dwayne Graveline. He wrote a book called Lipitor Thief of Memory. And I've seen many people who had statin-induced brain issues. I believe my father had that as well. One of the reasons why my father died at the age of 63 of a Parkinson's-like illness, which is, again, a whole nother story. And I could string together, again, about how Lipitor interferes with certain molecules, certainly many molecules in the body that would lead someone to a Parkinson's like illness. And then the third problem I have with statins is that they lead to a false sense of security. Take a
Mm.
Lipitor and eat, live, and think however you want. We got you. You're protected. Let's put Lipitor in the drinking water. So that's the problem with, the main three things with statin drugs. And ultimately, of course, they don't address the root cause of why people have heart disease. And I'm just one of those people who I'm always about root cause cardiology. And it's a pharma last approach, not pharma first, like the vast, vast, vast majority of cardiologists.
Wow, I love all of what you just said, and I have to ask the question. So, when in other countries, the levels of cholesterol, and there's a doctor, and I can't remember his name right now, specifically as a cancer survivor, I have researched and I have come to the conclusion that the lower my cholesterol levels are, the higher at risk I am for a cancer recurrence. In other countries, the values are typically what I've found to be over 300. Our values for a lab is 200 and under is ideal, correct? So it's my understanding that these lab levels were changed at about the same time that these statins were introduced into the market. Is there any truth to that?
Listen, it's definitely the truth. And the same thing with blood pressure and blood sugar and everything else. And it's just an obvious reality that corporations are in the business to make money. How do you make more money? Well, you get more people on your drugs. How do you get more people on your drugs? You create guidelines that the doctors have to follow, that they willingly follow, and then you produce data that tells you that the lower the numbers, the better. And now you've got tens of millions of people on cholesterol drugs. You've got 100 million Americans eligible for blood pressure drugs because you've lowered the number down to under 140. In fact, a lot of doctors in various conditions, I mean, they'll just believe that every diabetic should be on blood pressure drugs. Every diabetic. So, I mean, again, like, it's just, it's business. It's just
Yeah,
business, and that is not, again, conspiratorial. That's just a reality of how you
right,
create more customers,
right.
for your products.
I agree 100%. I could spend literally hours talking to you. I want to try to keep this succinct and to the point because I get something in my brain when you talk about something, I'm like, oh, I have like 20 questions to ask him right now. But I want to try to stay focused and on task. So having said that, we are at record use for statins, right? What is the number one and number two killer of people in the United States?
Well, the number one killer, I mean, so, anybody would say heart attack and stroke, but it always goes. So, but let's think about what is actually what kills people is the root cause
Right.
that leads people to cancer and to heart disease and to brain disease and autoimmune disease and gut disorders and etc. And it's all about root cause. I call that violations of the natural heart doctor method, violations of eat well, live well, think well, of thrival nutrition, thrival lifestyle, thrival mindset. That is root cause that leads to things like inflammation and oxidative stress, epithelial dysfunction, leaky gut, intestinal hyperpermeability, endothelial blood vessel dysfunction, immune dysfunction, which is, of course, cancer. So that's real. Those are the real leading killers. Yeah, we can go down the list. Well, what about medical errors? And I mean, like, oh,
Right.
and that is all true. So, I could say the leading killer of people, Leah, are medical doctors. They're the leading killer of people because they don't give health advice, they give
Right.
sickness advice. Let me
Yeah.
wrap up this one. Let me go back to this one thing too,
Yeah.
is that you talk about how does someone defeat cancer? And how do they do so if they're on a statin drug? Because they've got low cholesterol. Cholesterol is critical for every single function in the body, every single cell in the body. So if you don't produce cholesterol, how is your body supposed to function? How is your body supposed to produce hormones? How is your body supposed to digest? How is your body supposed to make vitamin D? Every single cell has what's called the cell membrane or the fence, and that is loaded with cholesterol. So how can your body fight these things with one arm tied behind its back? Because you're inhibiting its ability to get the job done. We need to give the body what it needs, take away what it doesn't, which are pharmaceuticals, and that's the only survival plan.
Yeah. I am so glad you circled back to that because that was going to be one of my next questions is we're trying to lower cholesterol, but people don't understand what cholesterol does in the body. And I love that you hit the fact that we need cholesterol. So I deal with a lot of women and they all have hormonal issues. And historically, when you look at their labs, their cholesterol levels are terrible. And when I mean that, I mean they're very low, and yet they still have hormonal issues. So we know in the training that I've had, and I'm sure in the training maybe that you did or didn't have that you've learned on your own, that we need cholesterol to make hormones, right? What is the number one thing we need when we get injured? Comes from cholesterol for wound healing. People don't understand the importance of cholesterol with vitamin D synthesis, right? So thank you for hitting the nail on the head with those. Is there anything else that you can that you could add that you think that's so beneficial? Like you said, with cancer, the correlation between low cholesterol and a cancer reoccurrence. I never knew the correlation, and my cholesterol levels started to inch up a little bit, and I was like starting to panic a little bit 5 or 6 years ago, and then I started really delving into cholesterol. And I'm like, holy cow, everything we've been told about cholesterol is a complete lie. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, I mean, again, when I spoke of the truth about cancer back in 2016, Ty Bollinger, called me up and he said, I want you to speak at TTAC. We're doing our first live event. I'm like, I'm a cardiologist. I mean, this is a cancer thing. And he said, well, they've all got cardiovascular concerns. And I said, okay, that's obviously true. So in front of thousands of people, and I mean hundreds of thousands, that were live streaming and worldwide and the recordings thereof, I said a very simple statement. You cannot heal in the same environment where you got sick.
Absolutely.
So whether it's cancer or it's heart disease or brain disease, you have to change up your environment. And the more you change it up, the better your chance of
Absolutely.
survival. So what does that mean? And what do we mean by environment? I really believe that kind of is a more of a catchphrase for your food environment, your lifestyle environment, and your thoughts environment, your mindset
Thank you.
environment. All that changes. So it doesn't mean that you need to move from Klamath Falls to Costa Rica, although I suggest that you do. It just means you have, where you got sick, you can't heal. It's not just a matter of, well, I'm going to be
Right.
the exact same person plus
Right.
chemotherapy and radiation, and that's a survival strategy. It's just not. It
Right.
may be better than placebo. It may be better than placebo, but it's not the optimal. It's not a
Right.
matter of, well, how do I reduce my recurrent cancer risk from 3%, or
Right.
30% to 28%? And the doctors cheer that on like, oh,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, we reduced it, by 8%. And you're like,
Right.
wait a second, 30% to 28%.
Yeah.
We want to know, how do I get to 0%? Well, what do I have to do? I have to eat, live, and think differently than the
Absolutely.
person who got the cancer.
I just love that. So we're going to segue into my next question because yeah, this is working out beautifully. Like we're on the same page mentally here without even knowing it. So, I 100% agree with you. And, I often tell the people that listen to me that I had to change who I was when I was diagnosed with cancer and be a completely different person. And that meant the way I lived my life, in my thinking, in my movement, in my eating. So there are going to be two questions off of this. So previously I was vegetarian for many years. I was probably estrogen dominant. I had probably blood sugar dysregulation. I didn't know because I didn't go to the doctors, right? I had 3 children. After having 3 children, I was severely depressed, anxiety, depression, all these led up to, so everybody's like, well, you were perfectly healthy before you got diagnosed with cancer, because I ran. I was a marathon runner. I loved to hike. I loved to do trails. I was a aggressive outdoorsman. I slept terribly. I drank Diet Pop all through the day. I ate paydays for breakfast and Burger King for lunch. So I had to drastically change that. And I stumbled upon Jay Kordich early on. That was kind of my story. Then Dr. Gonzalez. I know all the truth about cancer people. I used to be an affiliate for them because I would send so many people their way. But what I wasn't prepared for, living my whole life, all of that, I wasn't prepared for what was going on between my ears. I was a mental midget. So your quote of live wealthy, live wealthy, live wealthy, eat well, and what was the other one you
Well, I mean,
said?
certainly wealthy is good.
Eat
Wealthy
well, live
solves
well, think well.
a lot of the problems. Yeah, but it's the, kind of like eat well, live well, think well.
Yes.
Uh, and, I mean, it's all totally true. And, you bring up a great point that so many people, millions of people, everyone looks at them and they're like, they were so healthy. Leah, she exercised and, she was thin and looked to be in great shape. and she got cancer. But just to your point, healthy people don't get cancer.
Right.
Healthy people don't die of COVID.
Right.
Healthy people don't have heart attacks or strokes.
Right.
Healthy people don't get basal cell carcinoma on their ear. And that
Right.
is not an isolated problem of the skin on their ear. That is a total body problem. And that's what we need to get people to understand. And therefore, just carving out this or having a Mohs procedure on your nose, that's not the answer. That may take care of this, but you will get sick very quickly afterwards because you didn't take care of the whole body. And
Yeah.
people just, and of course, the medical doctors don't have a clue on this. So, like you said, you have to change everything. Ideally, you would change everything that you eat.
Yep.
Every way that you live. And one of the big things when you interview my wife, and I owe everything to my wife, I owe everything in here to my wife. And I owe the ability to accept what she told me. I owe that to God. But I owe all of that again to this kind of combination, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, about how it all happened, about how my father was sick and dying of a Parkinson's like illness. And I meet this 29-year-old chiropractor who tells me your profession is a sham. You're killing people. Your pharmaceuticals kill people. Everything you've ever earned is a lie. And the Mayo Clinic has no idea why my father is sick and dying. And the 29-year-old chiropractor knows all the reasons why my father is sick and dying. And I say this, Leah, all the time, and I say it from the stage. I listen for two reasons. Number one, the vehicle, she's smoking hot and she becomes my
She
wife.
is smoking hot.
And number two, it made perfect sense. It just clicked in my brain immediately. And for a lot of other medical doctors, it doesn't click because we get paid to not understand the truth.
Right.
We get paid to do procedures and prescribe pharmaceuticals and see 65 patients a day. That's how we get paid.
Yeah.
But ultimately, again, as we look at one of the things that she will go into, and maybe I'll save that for her, is changing up your environment, which is the fact that just about everyone lives in a home that is compromised from water damage, mold, and or water damage bacteria. That's not even something I understood in 2016. But I learned it very quickly, the severity of it, because I would talk about it on a cursory level, and you think it never affects you until in 2018, we discovered it was affecting us as a family. And that put us on our journey even to this day, where as I speak to you right now, I'm inside of my Sprinter van, but I slept in a tent last night with my wife and 3 of our 4 children.
I mean, if I could do that, I would be right there with you with my tent and my family, because I hate being indoors. I feel the best when I'm outside. So what does that tell you? Our homes are full of toxic exposure of lead or paint. I shouldn't even say lead, because I'm doing some different research on lead. I'm not so sure about that anymore. But anyway, that's a whole nother
good for you, Leah, because when I first started, it was all about metals and about gluten. And I've really come full circle. Now, I'm not saying that lead is necessarily beneficial. Like, there's no benefits in the human body to lead outside of maybe just trace amounts that would have been found in the environment 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. And there's all these different environmental toxins, like you mentioned, whether it's EMF, it's carbon monoxide, all these things, but only mold and bacteria are living, respirating organisms that want to survive, and they release their toxins. Their Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. The most famous mold toxin of all time, you may have heard of. It's called penicillin. So these are real things. There's a pharmaceutical called Cellcept that is mycophenolic acid that shuts down your immune system so much they give it to people who get organ transplants. You get a new liver, new heart, new kidney, new lungs. Somebody else has donated to you. They put you on immunosuppressants so your immune system doesn't attack the new organ. That is mycophenolic acid, and you could be living in it. So,
Okay.
yes, I'm not saying lead paint is a good thing. I'm not saying that EMF and all these other, but lead is not in paint saying I want to kill the inhabitants of the house.
Right.
Mold does. Now, I'm not trying
Right.
to make it human. I'm not trying to give it
Yeah.
anthropomorphic characteristics,
Sure.
but it wants to survive,
Right.
and you're in
Yes.
its way, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's a big can of worms that we could go down. But I totally 100% agree with you. We see it regularly with the clients we work with. When I'm indoors, again, I feel my worst. When I'm outdoors with even in the fresh chemtrailed air, did I just say that live? I'm still feeling better than when I'm in my bed, in my house. So I agree with you, and especially where I live in Salem, high humidity. Oh my goodness. I'm sure I don't even want to know what's in my house,
The
to be
more
honest with you.
time you spend outside, the longer you live.
A hundred
And if you're
percent.
listening to me right now, the truth hurts. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to say, you know what, I'm just going to swallow a pharmaceutical or I'm going to swallow a supplement than it is to deal with the consequences of mold and or water damage bacteria. But
Yep.
just to get a semblance and a reading, I suggest what's called the number 8 Swiffer test, which we do sell on the naturalheartdoctor.com website. It includes a review, which is typically with me or one of my other doctors. And that is where you collect dust samples of your home and you see the amount of mold and bacteria in your home, and at least you know what you're dealing with, and then have a discussion like, is this something that can be remediated, or is it not? And then the decision is up to you. You may
Yeah.
be like, okay, listen, I'm going to do everything I can, but I'm not moving out of my house. I would
Right.
wish you good luck because I think you're going to fail. But um, the first thing to do is to test. And please never assume that just because your house is new or just because
Right.
you're a clean person,
Right.
it doesn't matter. It
Right.
doesn't matter. And it goes back to the Bible where Moses is talking about this 3,500 years ago. If you're living in water damage, mold, you got to get it fixed. Then it gets inspected. And if it fails the inspection, you tear the structure down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
it.
I I agree with you. And oh boy, that's a fight that yeah, my husband goes along with a lot and he puts up with a lot. And I have to baby step into that one. So
Well, let me say this, Leah. Okay. The women are the canary in the coal mine. And they're
yeah.
the canary in the coal mine because a woman should not give birth to a baby in an unhealthy environment. Like,
Right.
the intuition, the innate intelligence of the female would know this environment is not safe. Maybe because of stress, maybe
Yeah.
because of air pollution, and to say, well, you know what, there's a lot of fires going on right now. Now is not the time to get pregnant because nature understands that. Our God-given ability understands
Yeah.
that. So the woman knows not to conceive a baby in the home, typically that has mold, and that's why mold leads to a lot of infertility for a whole variety of
Oh,
reasons.
wow. Yeah, that makes
The
sense.
man doesn't overtly have symptoms. The man says, I feel fine. Now, the man is overweight. The man has low libido. The man has erectile dysfunction. The man is about to drop dead of a heart attack. But at the moment, he doesn't attribute anything to this. And the
Right.
man is so tied into money. He's like, what? I'm not spending the money on the test.
Yeah.
I'm not spending the money on remediating the home. I'm not moving homes. I'm not living in a tent. That is why my wife is responsible for many, many, many divorces, because she will empower the women to say, tell your husband to get the fuck out of the house
Wow.
because I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
sick and you're not listening.
Yeah.
And you took me to the medical doctor, and the medical doctor said that I need Prozac. I
Yeah.
don't need Prozac. I
Yeah.
don't need Wellbutrin, and I don't need a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
living in a house that's making me sick. It's leading to neuroinflammation, and my brain is on fire.
Yeah.
And the root cause of that are violations of eat well, live well, think well. And I'm doing all these other things, but it's not enough
Yeah.
because I'm living in a neuroinflammatory state that is all over the medical literature, but the medical community doesn't read that. They just read about Prozac and the newer iterations of that.
Right. Can
So
you,
what do? You either are with me on this, husband, or you're against me.
yeah.
And if you're against me, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you're and we're gonna and I'm not saying this is easy,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's
But
not.
my wife told me I'll wrap this up here, Leah.
No, you're doing
My
all
wife
right.
told me in 2018 when she discovered mold in our home in Arizona, and that was the root cause of what was making her sick and having problems with nursing and breastfeeding and all these things. And
Wow.
she called me up on the phone. I was at the office. She said, I found mold in the house. I packed up. I've got the boys. I've got our newborn baby girl. I'm heading over to my sister's. And if you want to join us, that's where we're going to be. And of course, I was like, I mean, of course, you're my entire world. Of course, I'm coming to
Yeah.
join you. You know, she knew
Yeah.
that she knew I was coming. But her answer would have been, if you don't do this, you know, bye bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
I know you make all the money. I know you control everything. I understand that. But I'm going to figure it out because I'm not living in mold.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
you're
if you
correct.
think you're going to vaccinate our children, you can do so, but it will be as a divorced
Yeah.
co-parent of the children.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's a
I mean, and hopefully that is enough to stir the men into action and
yeah.
to look at them and say, you, husband, you're about to die. You're about to have a heart attack or stroke or Parkinson's or cancer,
Yeah.
and your low libido and your limp dick and your skin issues and your gut issues and your fat belly and your snoring and your blood pressure and your cholesterol, that's from mold
Yeah.
or bacteria in the home.
Yeah.
And if you want to die here, go ahead. But I'm not dying here.
Yeah.
I'm out.
So Dr. Wolfson, on that note, what are your long-term plans? Like, what are you and your family going to do? Are you
Great
going to build
question.
another house? Are you,
So here's so yes, I consider myself the world's best preventive cardiologist. And my business, Natural Heart Doctor, does very well. My coaches, my other doctors, myself, I still do consultations, not a lot of them, but I do. I do a lot of lectures and web. I consider myself the best. Now, somebody else may say I'm the worst because I don't prescribe the drugs, etc. And I live in a vinyl tent. And we've been nomads, so we're traveling around, so we've not gotten together a permanent tent structure. And there's ways to do this, but we are building in the mountains of Costa Rica at elevation, and we are building out of concrete, glass, and steel. We will have some canvas tents that are there that we will do our best to make sure that they do not grow mold and or bacteria. And if there is a sign of that, we will throw those out. But the concrete, steel, and glass, that is your best effort to avoid mold. If you build out of wood, it will become
yeah,
moldy. The
right,
wood arrived mold, it will grow mold and or
right.
bacteria. Then you encase it in the drywall and you're done.
Yeah,
And there's even strategies about how to, we live in the vinyl tents. We have to lift up and flip the vinyl tent every day because moisture gets underneath, and
right.
therefore the dirt and the soil and stuff that can grow mold. So you have to pay attention to all of this.
Yeah,
But the alternative is that you're going to die.
Yeah.
And you're going to die of cancer, and you're going to die of heart disease, and you're going to die of brain disorders. So
Yeah.
this is what you have to do. You have to make the effort. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. You're not going to live your best life. And don't
Yeah.
tell me, oh, my Aunt Sally, my parents, they lived in they lived in mold and they made it. Hey, listen, there's some people that smoke cigarettes into their mid 80s. Not many. So
Yeah.
yes, the human body is built in such an amazing way, right? You talk
Right.
about payday candy bars, and Burger King for lunch.
Yeah.
We can dump all this crap into our bodies and we can live until the day we don't.
Right. 42 years I did that. And then it's like, you're not doing this anymore, and it's like, and cancer, that's a whole, I don't even, we could probably go for hours and talk about really truly what cancer is. Because there's a huge fear campaign around the word cancer, right? And as soon as somebody is told you've got cancer, then fear goes in, the mechanism in the brain just goes crazy. And for me, I was literally not going to do any of the treatments. I was going to try all the natural ways, like I'm doing now. But the fear of God was put
The
in my
fear.
family, and
Yes.
my doctor literally called a emergency meeting and got my husband on the phone to come bring me to this doctor's appointment to talk sense into me because I wasn't going to do chemo.
Yep.
And at the last minute, I was so terrified. I put the port
Yep.
in and I started my chemo treatments crying hysterically. So I'm segueing.
Doctors are the biggest. I mean, doctors are the biggest bullies, the
Oh,
biggest
it's
bullies, the biggest fear
terrible.
mongers.
Terrible.
Do this or you're going to die. Do this or
Yeah.
you're no longer going to be my
Yep.
patient.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
chemo doctor makes a ton of money off of it. I mean, but at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
but they believe that that is the best effort. And again, each person is on their individual journey. We're not here to berate or belittle people for what they
Sure. Of
did. The
course.
past is the past, and it's always about moving forward. But if you've
Absolutely.
been labeled with whatever diagnosis, seek out alternative therapies, and trust the innate. Trust if you
Right.
change up your eat well, your live well, your think well, that
Yeah.
now your body can recover. Give the body what it needs, take away what it doesn't. And the body doesn't need chemotherapy and ports and radiation. It just doesn't make sense that that would ever be the answer, despite whatever data that they would throw at us, because again, we're not looking for a 5%, improvement. We're not looking for
Right.
10% survival. We're looking at what is the 100% survival plan. And we
100%.
know they don't offer that. They tell us what they offer, and it's not that. And a lot of what they do is not even evidence based. It's not even
Right.
randomized, placebo
Right.
controlled trials. And it's certainly not randomized against eat well, live well, think well.
Right. Well, I tell my listeners and my clients that I work with in my business that my cancer wasn't a chemotherapy deficiency. It wasn't a dreamycin deficiency. So let's look at what's the root cause. So I'm thankful that, to be honest with you, I will never look back and I scratch my head and go, why didn't you have the same rational thinking that you have today then? If I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So, God places us in places in situations in our lives for a reason. And I believe that while I would never do it again, maybe it was a necessary evil for me to be where I'm at today. And I help hundreds of people with their health. But I want to get to this part. So when I went through chemotherapy, adriamycin is a drug that's well known for heart damage. Midway through my treatments, it was suggested that I do a drug called Herceptin because I had it's a targeted therapy for a specific receptor of cancer that I had, HER2/neu. They would not allow me they told me that was going to be the best part of my treatment. That was going to give me long life in addition to the tamoxifen, which we don't even want to go down that road today. So they would not allow me to have the Herceptin because when they rechecked my ejection fraction on my echocardiogram, my ejection fraction dropped below normal and I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Immediately, they put me on lisinopril. They said nothing about changing the way I ate, which I'd already done. But my mother-in-law is really good friends with a cardiologist who happens to be her cardiologist. That's another story. And she read my echo and she said, Oh, no, 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 no. This isn't from the medication. Adriamycin is known to cause heart issues further down the line, not immediately. She's doing this to herself, and she stamped on my results. This is Takotsubo syndrome. I was so depressed. I literally could not get out of bed in the morning. I cried every day. I was terrified to die because of the fear campaign that was imposed on my brain early on from the oncologist, who basically told me what my survival statistics were going to be if I didn't do all their treatments. I lived in fear. So I believe in my heart of hearts that I brought this on with my stinking thinking. And people say, oh, you don't want to put that on people because then you're, but let's talk about Takotsubo syndrome, heartbreak syndrome. The the husband dies months later or days later, even the wife dies. Tell me about this from a cardiologist standpoint, what you've seen. I know you've seen probably some pretty amazing things.
Well, two things, come up there. It really, as it comes to kind of this premenopausal, perimenopausal, women in this kind of like 35 to maybe 55-year-old category. And there's two diagnoses that I'll talk about briefly. One is Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, like you said, broken heart syndrome, stressful event, loss, divorce, financial issue, geopolitical issues, job issues, boss fires you, argument with a boss. A stressful situation leads a woman to have an acute myocardial infarction. They have a massive heart attack, and we go in there with catheters and there's no blockages. It's likely a coronary spasm, just a stress-induced spasm that leads to significant heart damage, myocardial damage, and that would be localized. So like one part of the heart is affected. Adriamycin or doxorubicin cardiomyopathy, chemocardiomyopathy, that will be more of a global, phenomenon. So that's how you would tell the difference between the two. In the case of Takotsubo, it has to, stress alone can't be the only factor. There are the other, when you lay the stress on top of the violations of eat well, live well, think well. So the woman stress, and she also maybe hasn't been eating well, or she does live in mold, or she's got EMF exposure, or she doesn't get sunshine, doesn't get vitamin D, has poor sleep, dietary. I mean, all these other things that go along with it. So again, that is the stress-induced cardiomyopathy, Takotsubo. Takotsubo is a Japanese term that has to do with the way the heart looks. Looks like an octopus. Takotsubo is Japanese for octopus. Okay. The other diagnosis is SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. So the arteries have three layers: the intima, the most innermost, the media, which is full of muscle tissue, and then the adventitia, which is the support layers. So you have a dissection along those planes, oftentimes induced by stress. And that is, again, where that is a massive heart attack that occurs, but not because of plaque, atherosclerosis that we would think of. It's because of a dissection where essentially you shear off this layer, and now this layer called the media blocks off blood flow, massive heart attack. And the doctor can get in there, given the time, to and put in stents and perform some life-saving procedures, preserving procedures. But again, all those have to do. So what do we do there? Women who are survivors of that, let's work on stress modification techniques amongst everything else. And maybe you've got a family history, or you're friends with someone, you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. It seems like it's happening more and more. Well, that's how we get, again, the whole concept of eat well, live well, think well, that thrival mindset. Real quick, chemocardiomyopathy. In the case of doxorubicin, what that does is that it leads to a massive megadose of oxidative stress. This massive oxidation process that does kill cancer cells, but it kills a lot of things, along with the heart at the same time. And what happens is that some of those cells can recover in the heart, but a lot of them cannot. They're fibrotic, the cells are dead. So what we would need to do though is that we need to make sure that we make your heart as strong as possible going forward, prevent oxidative stress. This all occurs at a mitochondrial level. So what are all the ways that we can supercharge the mitochondria? These critically important organelles, as all organelles inside of all cells are critically important, but I can't say anything's more important than the mitochondria. So, how do we supercharge the mitochondria to exist for a lifetime? And again, that's a whole massive thing, but we'll kind of keep circling back to give the mitochondria what it needs, take away what it doesn't, and that's the survival strategy. I think I lost you
Uh-oh.
there, Leah.
Shoot. I lost you.
I did I lose you there, Leah? What's up, Brodo? Leah, I lost
I
you
don't know what
there.
happened to us. Gotta love Zoom.
Where did I lose you? Hello,
We
hello,
were
hello.
talking about the mitochondria.
Yeah, so I mean that was
Like,
my final thought was that it's all about the mitochondria, and then how do we fix the mitochondria? That's really the key.
yeah. Um, I totally agree with you. Thank you for the clarification on the Takotsubo syndrome. It was definitely so. I want to get to this last. I know you're a busy guy, and you've got all these chores that you need to do, and you guys live just exactly the way I want to be living. I love chores, and oh, I saw your wife do a video. She was on a four-wheeler or a three-wheeler. Oh my goodness, how fun! Um, Dr. Wolfson, let's kind of wrap this up. I have two other questions that I'm really curious about. I want to know about your cardiology coffee,
Yep.
because that's there's a lot of controversy around coffee. Dave Asprey kind of brought coffee back on the map with his bulletproof. Oh gosh, what's his name? Jason Christoph. He's like, absolutely do not drink coffee. It's the worst thing ever. But we love our coffee. Tell me about your
Yeah.
cardiology coffee.
So I've been a coffee drinker since I was probably about 10 years of age. We would take family road trips and my father would drive all night and he'd go into the gas station to get coffee and I'd say, "Hey Pop, can you get me some coffee?" So he'd get me some poison coffee that I realize now, in a styrofoam cup. And I'd sit in the back seat while he was driving and, with my brothers and sisters. And that's what we would do. So fast forward to undergrad, medical school, residency, fellowship. I survived on coffee, going to the nurse's station, cheap coffee, styrofoam cup. And then I would meet my wife and she's like, coffee's bad. It's bad for your adrenals and it causes leaky gut and it's a vice. And I would understand all that, but I'm still a hospital-based cardiologist at the time. And I'm like, I need it. I feel like I need it. It's like I give up alcohol for the most part at the time, and now I don't drink really ever. But, you make all these changes and it's like, can I still have my one vice? So, of course, when I drink coffee now, circa when I met my wife, 2006, 7, 8, it's organic coffee, right? So it's organic. I understand that. And then I get hired as a consultant for, um, uh, uh, oh, now I'm blanking on the name of the coffee company because they've got so many different brands of what they've done and changed. But in any case, they hire me on and start talking about the cardiovascular benefits of coffee, and then I try and do a company, do a white label, from their company, and I realized that's not going to work. I'm going to start my own business because I'm reading about I'm looking at the medical literature critically and saying there's all these health benefits to coffee. Coffee drinkers live longer, less
Right.
heart attacks, less strokes, less Parkinson's, which was very much of interest to me, and less incidence of atrial fibrillation, all these benefits to the coffee. And that's when you drink just garden variety garbage. What if you drink the best? So I decide I'm going to go and I'm going to farm, the best coffee. And I'm going to get coffee. I find the coffee. It comes from Honduras. It was started as a women's co-op. So it's run and owned by women in Honduras to lift themselves out of poverty. 5% we give back to the Friends of Honduran Children that don't send vaccines down there or antibiotics down there. They help them with organic farming practices and with holistic, living structures. And the idea there also is that we tested the coffee. We made sure, okay, so it's certified organic. We third-party tested for glyphosate, none. We third-party tested for mold mycotoxins, none. And Asprey made famous the mold issue inside of coffee, which is definitely an issue, probably not as big of an issue as we would think and as Dave would make us believe. And I know Dave well. But Bulletproof was never organic, so I wanted to make sure that we kind of put it all together. All right. There are a lot of amazing coffees out there. Coffee is heart healthy. If you don't like coffee, don't drink it. I'm not encouraging people to become coffee drinkers. But if that is your vice, if you love coffee, now Jason Christoff, I do know as well. And what bothers him about coffee is that caffeine is a drug.
Yes.
And he feels that the people who wish to control us are controlling us through many different mechanisms, one of which is coffee. Like, I need more coffee. I need more coffee. Why are coffee stores on every corner and all four corners on an intersection?
Right.
And I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting that. I do think that drinking coffee before noon has its benefits to it. I don't think drinking coffee and caffeine all day is the strategy, but 3 or 4 cups of coffee before noon, I think is good.
Okay. I love that. Do you add your healthy fat to it, or do you drink it hot, black, and tell me about that?
So I was trained, if you will. I grew up on pure black coffee, never adding anything to it. And obviously, if you add artificial, sweeteners and colors and flavors and cheap creamers and plastic, I mean, that's obvious.
Right.
If I do add anything to my coffee after maybe the first couple cups, my first choice would be raw cream.
Okay.
Raw cream. My second choice would be raw butter or raw ghee. And that's pretty much all that I would ever add.
Yeah. Coconut
to it. I
milk.
guess
Do you
you
like
could say
coconut fat?
yeah, raw milk, this whole thing about MCT oil, that's just processed garbage. That's all Asprey bulletproof stuff to make money.
Yeah.
I'm not into that. Coming in plastic containers. If you want to add coconut oil to it, add coconut oil. But raw cream, and then you get some people who talk about, well, you diminish the value of the nutrients because the raw cream binds up, we can get into too much minutia.
Right.
But I think that raw cream has so many health benefits. You could also, blend up raw egg, into it. You can get creative, with it. Shilajit tar is one of my favorite things as well. So Shilajit comes from the Himalayan mountains.
Yep.
It's got all these different minerals in there that are in plant decayed compounds. So it really is in this perfect form. So sometimes I'll mix in Shilajit tar into the coffee as well. It has a very similar flavor because it is like this burnt, smoky flavor. So, the other thing finally is that, you always want to drink out of metal, and potentially glass, although glass can be, you got to be careful with glass because it can shatter and stuff like that. But you never want to drink out of those, cups. The cups are all made out of plastic, the Starbucks cup, they're all lined with plastic. I mean, how do you put hot coffee into paper, right? It's gotta be, changed, and that's what it is. And plastic after mold mycotoxins, plastic may be the single biggest offender of all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for that insight on the coffee. There's so much, just again, controversy, who has the right answer or not answer. There's many studies out there, like you said, for the heart health. We know that, for women who have adrenal issues like myself continually, that coffee can be hard on the adrenals, but I do 1 cup in the morning, and I seem to do quite well with that. So everything in moderation, I think, as well. So, Dr. Wolfson, if
Hold,
there,
Leah, you're not going to drop that everything in moderation thing. No, 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 no.
okay, okay, let me
Walk
just
that
say,
back. Walk
all
it
right, all
back.
right. That's an old cliche, right? So
Explain that, because now people are going to think they can have
you're right.
paydays in
You're
moderation.
absolutely okay. So let me just say that I've come kind of full circle on a lot of this stuff. So do I believe that I lived in fear regarding eating and drinking for 5 years? Like, I would not even venture off of my diet. I would go to restaurants when we had to eat at a restaurant, and I would say, this is how I need this prepared. What kind of oils are you? I mean, my husband would be like, oh my God, don't take her anywhere. So I've come off of that a little bit, and I occasionally will indulge in a piece of really good cheesecake that's made from all organic stuff. So I'm not going to live in that place of fear anymore, because there's a huge correlation in my thinking, my mind, of what we eat and the energy around food. And I believe your wife even talks about energy of food, right? So in moderation, what do I mean by that? I mean that once in a great while, it's okay to indulge in something that makes your heart happy. Is it every day, all day, and this is the way you live? And when I see you at the grocery store, your grocery cart is so full of crap that you're embarrassed that you see me? No. So moderation, yes. Thank you for correcting me on that. I
Well,
have
I
one
mean,
cup a
you know,
day.
here I want to say this is, I mean, because we are that family who, if we go out to a restaurant, asks all those questions, and it's annoying, and nobody likes us, and we have no
Yeah.
friends, and all those kind of things. I get all that, but here's what I want to say when it comes to food. Um, I believe seafood is the healthiest food on earth. So please eat seafood. I believe in free range, regeneratively raised, grass fed animal products, including the organs, preferably bison.
Yeah.
But eat organic food. So no matter what your vice is, just make it organic. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. There's a product called ice cream for bears. It's sweetened with raw honey. It is pasteurized dairy, but it is grass, fed, grass finished. It is pasture raised eggs. It's not as good as homemade ice cream, but we can have our cake and eat it too. We can enjoy ourselves. The party can continue, but the party has to change. It can't be payday from
Right.
M&M Mars, but you can find organic payday and similar. You can find
Yes.
organic ice cream. You can find organic bread and sourdough. You
Right.
can find organic cereal. You can find organic pizza. And the more you clean out the poison, the longer and better
Right.
you're going to live.
Right.
And the other thing, too, is that on this kind of mantra of like 80-20, 20% of the time I cheat. What you're doing is you're feeding money to the devil. You're
Yeah.
supporting the evil people that are poisoning us. So
Yeah.
why would we ever say, well, once in a while I allow myself to have Starbucks or this cheat food, you know? Because we're supporting the devil, and
Yeah.
who wants to do that?
Yeah, I agree with you. When I say cheat, it's my cheat are what most people eat every day,
Yep.
or the majority of the people eat every day. So yes, thank you for correcting that, and let's dial that back. Not everything in moderation. Anybody that comes into my circle will know that, oh, my nickname for many years was the Green Label Lady. My kids would take their lunches to school, and the kids made fun of me. They made fun of my sons and my daughter, and now they actually
Totally. They make fun of us all the time. They make
yeah,
fun of it. People are making fun of us right now.
yeah,
I get it. Oh, well, Wolfson lives in a tent. You're going to trust that guy?
yeah,
They're annoying to be around. You lose friends. I mean, listen, but you gain your tribe. And
absolutely,
listen, it's if you want to survive, this is the way to do it. And if you're like, you
absolutely,
know what? I'm going to go 80-20, and wherever the chips fall, they fall. Okay, fine. But
yeah,
I'm not betting on that. My
right,
father died at 63. I don't want to die.
right,
I
yeah,
want to be around for my children, my
absolutely,
grandchildren, and God willing, my great grandchildren. And I don't want to be a demented, thing in a wheelchair.
absolutely. Do you mind me asking how old you are, Dr. Wolfson? Is that
I
it?
am almost 55.
I'm 55 too. That's the best age. Okay, so let's make this our last question. I know that you and your wife are like, as you said, natural, organic, free range, food, specifically organs. I have this burning question that I don't know if anybody can ever get. Maybe you can give clarification on this. So we talk about glandulars, ingesting glandulars. The idea behind it is when you eat the gland of an animal, you're supporting the glands of yourself, right? So when I went to Dr. Gonzalez, he's a big glandular guy. He gave me heart to heal my heart. He gave me thyroid to heal my thyroid. What about the liver? So we know that the liver is a detox organ. So there's so many that say if you're ingesting liver, and I have heard that liver is like one of the best glandular you can eat, but then other doctors are like, or other powers that be will say, you've got to be crazy. That's where all the toxins are. Why would you eat liver? Give me your input on that.
Okay, so the liver doesn't store toxins, it processes toxins. So let's not worry about the liver. And
Okay.
especially when you're eating the liver from a free range, grass fed, grass finished, essentially wild bison from South Dakota. I think we're good there.
South Dakota.
Um, and we've tested and we've got these products encapsulated and we've tested them and there's nothing, there's no metals to worry about. There's no other toxins that that we're finding and stuff like that. I mean, again, the whole world's destroyed. Everything's got something. I mean, that's for sure. I don't know if it's getting hotter or colder, but I do know it's polluted beyond repair. Um, what Gonzalez was doing and what some of the supplements companies have done is the concept of almost like a homeopathic dose of like repairs like. What
Yeah.
we're talking about is really therapeutic. We're talking about if I want a healthy liver, well, why wouldn't I eat bison liver in a significant amount? If I want a healthy heart, then I'm going to eat the heart because the heart contains all the nutrients from the animal's heart that's going to repair my heart.
Right.
It's got all the CoQ10. It's got all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the proteins, all the fats to repair my heart. So that is the penultimate, strategy food. Now there's other things, of course, sleep and sunshine and all these other
Yeah.
things that are very important to critically repair your mitochondria. But when my wife's company, Wild Mamas, sells a product called Mother of All Prenatals, and it's bison liver, heart, kidney, bone marrow, spleen, bone. There is no better product in the world. Thank you to Standard Process. Thank you to all these other companies. My wife and I speak at the American Academy of Anti-Aging, tens of thousands of doctors in Las Vegas every year. And everyone's got these different biohacks. What about red light? What about sauna? What about peptides? What about GLPs? Blah, 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 blah. We can debate all those things all we want, but the foundation food are the organs and the seafood. And the products that we carry are the best in the world. That's all there is to it. There's no debate.
I would agree with you. And on that note, I would love to know, where can the people that listen to me find your products? Give me
Listen.
your pages.
Well, my website and social media and stuff like that is all under Natural Heart Doctor, naturalheartdoctor.com. We are the worldwide leader in cardiovascular health. Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Cedars-Sinai. They're the worldwide leaders in cardiovascular disease. We're the worldwide leaders in cardiovascular health. The and then my wife's and again, we're all over social media. My wife's company is called Wild Mamas. Her page is Wild Mamas _Untamed. I look forward to her interview with you, Leah. I think you guys
Absolutely.
obviously will hit it off smashingly. She's the brains of the operation. And again, I'm just along for the ride on the stuff that she presents to me, and I'm very open to it. And again, my trust in her now, and my trust in her innate really is what it is that when she says something, I know and I listen. And for the men who are listening, like, I get it. It sucks when they're always right. It sucks when they're always right. But if you admit to that and move on with that, you'll live longer and live happier.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Wolfson, I have you frozen again, but I'm appreciative your time,
Thank you.
there we are, your input, our energy today, for clarifying the statins, the heart. After all, if we don't have our heart, we have nothing, right? So thank you for your work. Thank you for everything that you share. It isn't an easy road, is it? So I like to think of us as trailblazers. And I have a statement that, what is it? Everybody, you've heard it. Well-behaved women. What is that? Well-behaved women.
Seldom
Gosh,
make
something.
history.
There you go. I couldn't even remember. Well-behaved women seldom make history, and that's definitely. I think that's actually a lie, because I think, yeah, exactly. So well-behaved women rarely. Yeah, exactly. I am not well-behaved. Don't want to be. I'm never going to be. So, anyhow, thank you again for your time. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to hit the record button off.